column. We are in our episode for AI Sentinel Institute, and we've got a very, very, very special guest today, Chris Hackney. He is a highly accomplished technology executive leader and CEO of AI Guardian, which is a pioneering platform dedicated to ensuring that businesses remain secure, compliant, and ethical in their use of AI. Welcome, Chris. We are really excited that you're here today.
No, thank you for the introduction, Cheryl. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Tom, do you want to kind of walk through some of the things that we were doing today?
Yeah, I mean, overall with AI Sentinel, obviously we're focused on ethical and responsible use of AI, and just we're really intrigued right now as to all the different groups that have a play in this space. And when we think of AI Guardian, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in this space? How is AI Guardian really operating for people so when they tune in, they can understand what this is?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Tom, and I appreciate you asking it. So from our side, we're a software solution. Just like software helps you in so many other ways, you got a lot of companies moving very quickly in AI, and they really need to take a pause and think about how they do governance and compliance. Compliance isn't quite there yet. There's not the plethora of laws that are on the books yet, but you're going to need a software solution who helps you manage that. You're going to have a risk management structure. You're going to bring that into a centralized environment. You're going to want your teams coming together in one place. And so what we hope to do through software is what software has done in so many other places, make your life easier, let you move faster in this space, but do it in a way where you have confidence about what you're doing and it's easy to do. And so that's what we're building here at AI Governance. It's a SaaS software solution in the governance and compliance space for AI.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Sounds really cool.
Cheryl, I really want to dive right into information while we've got Chris here, if you're fine
Sure.
with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris, you brought up something that really is I'm really intrigued with. So the EU AI Act, I mean that got just pushed right through the EU. It's amazing they got that not only developed but actually voted on, and now it's live. It's just simply amazing. When you think about the US, though, I mean, we're so far behind on regulation when it comes to AI governance. Where do you see us going? I mean, is there anything right now that's being discussed, or what should leaders know where regulation is headed in the US in light of what the EU just did?
Yeah, and I'll speak about it in two ways. I mean, the first way is a very simple one. We're doing what the US has done in previous regulation waves, and this is playing out exactly like data privacy regulation did, where the EU took the lead with GDPR. The US jumped in with some executive orders and some other things around data privacy. We're seeing that today with the White House executive orders, et cetera. But really where you saw the US lead was more at the state level. California with data privacy jumped in with CCPA. You've got about 15 to 20 states who now have data privacy laws in the books, but you still don't have a federal data privacy law. And I would anticipate you're going to see the same thing here on AI regulation. You'll see the states jump in. The normal suspects like California have been chirping pretty loudly. They feel like they've got jurisdiction over this with existing legislation they've already passed. They'll just extend it into AI use cases. And you'll see Congress take up some things, but generally Congress is paralyzed. We're going into an election year now. I severely doubt over 3 to 5 years you'll see much out of our Congress. But you'll probably see the executive branch through regulatory order push some things through that are important. So again, I continue to see Europe absolutely leading on this, just like they did with GDPR. They are going to set the probably more conservative tone for the world of additional regulation and kind of steeper enforcement that then becomes model legislation for other geographies to pick up, like the US or at least US states. So we see the same game plan playing out here as it did, 5 to 10 years ago on data privacy.
Do you see with the US, and I think that one of the reservations is that regulation, if we start regulating now, we're going to stifle AI innovation. Do you see that as a concern for regulators, or is it they just can't get out of their own way right now to actually design laws?
Yeah, I wish they could even think at that level right now.
Okay.
I think there's truth to that argument, though. Like the more you
Okay.
try and regulate it now, the truth is most regulators and government officials have no clue about AI. They really don't know
Mm,
what it is, and they're also really realistic that they're not sure what they should regulate. They know there's models involved. They know kind of transparent, like responsible AI framework pieces, like transparency and accountability are important. So you'll probably see them come in broad strokes there, particularly around transparency, making sure that at least they have visibility on things and they're not getting done in the dark. Is going to be one of their edicts, especially for these the largest of the LLMs that have um, honestly, in their opinion, national security threat implications. So I think you're going to see them jump in early there. On the other side of it, I think you're just going to see them jump in the areas where they can understand, where there's consumer friction points. AI is going to change your life and mine drastically over the next 18 to 24 months
Yep.
in a way most people still don't even comprehend. Some of it's going to be job related. Some of it's going to be you roll up to your Wendy's and it's a AI chatbot talking.
sure. Right.
And the ways legislators can start to understand that, though, right, is through things like bias. They want to make sure that certain groups aren't being discriminated against, or disclosure. Most people are going to want to know when they're interacting with AI, right, as a basic edict. And so, just like you saw kind of dumbed down versions of things in data privacy, like consent that people can understand. That's why you get that consent box on every website you go to today. You're going to see
Yep.
dumbed down versions of those things people can understand, like disclosure. You're going to see a footnote that always says, "This is an AI, capability. Would you like to interact with it?" So I think you're going to see more of that come through at that level. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome. The other thing I know in LinkedIn recently, you had posted, I think, reposted an article. And for those of you watching, if you have not
Yeah.
followed Chris, do it. He's got some great
Yes.
observations, some great articles that he follows. So please follow him. Reach out as you need to. You had mentioned that one of the departments that you could see monitoring AI algorithms was the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. Why
Yeah.
do you think that's something that? And again, I read the article, but at the same time, from your observation, why do you see that as being a group that could be key to AI governance?
Yeah, for the same reason I mentioned California kind of using the idea that they already have jurisdiction. The FTC is already going to say they have jurisdiction on this, right? They've already got the ability to enforce based on their mission. And so they're not going to have to wait. Regulatory agencies like that are not going to have to wait for
Mhm.
congressional approval on anything. They're going to move. Same with the SEC and others, right, on the financial space. And so the FTC is going to see it as an important part of their mission that's already defined. They already have empowerment to go after, and they've got an urgency, right? You've got a significant national election coming up this year. There's concern at all levels about manipulation of that election or any election. And so I think they're going to see under their edict an urgency to go after this as quick as possible. And you already see that with the largest players already forming consortiums on watermarking and other devices to
Yeah.
identify AI content that's generated out of their systems. So I think you're seeing some strong compliance up front because everyone knows things like that could kill the golden goose, and them trying to be partners of the FTC. But I think you're also going to see the FTC come down pretty hard on the dissemination of AI and penalties for that if it gets widespread.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm also curious, and again, boy, this is a politically charged question, so I hesitate to ask it, but I think I'm still going to ask it. So, whoever wins the White House, Democrats, GOP, however that goes, names will not be mentioned. What do
Yeah.
you think, from their party perspective, is more in line with AI governance, and where we could see more from the executive branch on what needs to be done? Which way would you go on those parties?
Yeah, I would say generally right now, I'd say probably the Democratic side is probably going to go a little heavier.
Okay.
If it's there, you're already seeing that. And by heavier, I mean more systemic. They're going after it in a lot of ways. The Biden White House was pretty early in going after completeness and comprehensiveness of regulatory agencies going after this. The wild card is the guy you didn't mention, Trump. He's not a typical Republican. Depending on what the whim of the moment is, some things could come down heavy-handed. Just depends. It also depends on how the party feels coming out of the elections and how they were treated by AI in those elections. At the end of the day, you're going to have probably some AI involvement in these things as it's getting involved in all media. And honestly, at the end of the day, whatever party loses is going to feel like it was used against them. And so you're going to have a lot of politicians who feel like controls need to be in place for something that harmed them in some way. Whether it was real or not, there's going to be the perception.
Which is the personal bias already.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. You're going to start to see that play. And it's an interesting one too. And when we talked about the FTC and others, this is when you listen to the interviews with Sam Altman, right? His main concern is not AGI. It says it's coming quick, but his really big concern is that AI, even today, is extremely good at subtle persuasion, the type that's very hard to detect. And if you can't detect it at scale, can have massive influence. And he's really worried more about actors coming in with persuasive media techniques and other things like that to affect our decision-making process in ways you and I, even as highly educated people, have difficulty really seeing until our mind has been shifted in some way. And so I think elections are a perfect avenue for that. But when you look at the experts, that's where their real fear is. And we've seen this already in the rise of social with honestly what's considered dumb media techniques. Imagine if you have smart, persuasive systems doing this, how much more powerful it's going to be.
Yeah, it's like a psychological hack to marketing, right?
Yep.
It's really like it's autonomous sometimes because we don't necessarily engage a lot part of our functions in the brain to pay attention to these very critically. And so that's going to be a wide, and I agree with that. I think that's a really big danger. We can get so complacent, and I just see iRobot happening.
Well, I said this the other day on the LinkedIn cast. I think that when AI, if it does become AGI, it's going after radiologists first because their jobs are always identified as being wiped out. Radiologists are first on, Terminator's hit list. It's just it's just really crazy. I'm serious. I mean, again, every time you see they're out of work, they're out of work now. That's how they're phrasing it. It's like, oh, it's not yet, not yet. We got plenty of time for anything like that. But so when we're thinking about all this, and for a leader who's watching this and saying, okay, this is all good information. And again, this is excellent information. Okay, so now what should I do? I've got this AI solution. I don't know if I should implement it. I just don't know what to do, where to get started. Well, I know that the White House directs us to NIST, the National the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they have a lot of frameworks out there. I mean, even the Intelligence Department has a framework. When you think about NIST or any other framework, I mean, what do leaders need to do? Is NIST something they can go to and say, you can rest assured, break the glass, pull this playbook out, and you'll be safe? I mean, is that a good place for leaders to start, or where should they go?
No, it's a great one actually. Usually government agencies aren't the greatest at some of these things, but NIST is actually a really good one. They've done really well in other areas. They're now applying in particularly in cybersecurity. They've applied those kind of precedents to AI, and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, or RMF, is a solid blueprint for how you should consider responsible AI practices in your own organization. And it's one we highly endorse. It is dense, though. If a CEO wants to go onto the NIST site and read it, it is like reading, an operating manual. So you need some interpretation of it, right? But what we always say is it's comprehensive and it should act like a checklist, meaning all NIST is trying to do is to say, hey, if you do like 50 things in AI, just do these things every time, right? These are the things you should be doing every time.
It's
Consistently.
consistently.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm a licensed pilot, and it's the same thing pilots do before takeoff, right? You've got a checklist, right?
Yep.
And it's simple things that you need to check, but you do it every time because you want a 100% safety rate. That's what you should be aspiring for in AI. And that's what NIST allows you to do. It's the checklist for an 100% safety rate. And so that's why we espouse it. Tom, to finish out that question, the one thing I'd say though, in kind of your premise was, if someone's really trying to just get out of the paralysis mode into moving forward. We highly encourage that, right? People should be moving forward fast in this space. But I'm not even sure if NIST is the place they should start. Usually we tell them just start with the basics here. Most CEOs or C-suites don't even know all the AI projects that are going on at their company. Have you
Oh,
done an
for
AI?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, have you done mapping of those projects yet? Do you have an approvals process for AI projects with clear owners of it? Do you have the ability to do risk assessments? There's just basics that, or even an AI policy that governs the use of AI in your company. Those are the things we're really asking C-suites to go after now from a governance perspective, because without that, you don't even have a foundation for the rest of the work that needs to get done.
Yeah, and those are fundamentals, honestly. Some of
Yeah.
these are
Yeah.
really truly fundamentals in any technology you're implementing, regardless if it's AI or not. So
Yeah.
consistent, what I've seen, because I've implemented many technologies, is consistency in having and understanding that all of these policies, operating manuals, whatever you might have, standards in your organization clear and everybody in the room understands that you have them, and you know that that you're using them consistently. Um, so I do have a question on in light of because we touch in the healthcare space a little bit here. Um,
Mm.
I know we've talked about general AI, but I want to, there's a lot of news right now with privacy breaches and, dangers of using AI, especially in healthcare, although there are positive and negative. So what I'd like to understand, what are the opportunities that you see that could be future for AI use in healthcare? And then what are you most concerned about in this space?
Yeah. So I'll answer two things I'm concerned.
Okay.
One of these is directly related to the idea that we've got change healthcare right now with a
Yeah,
major.
it's exactly who I was talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. Yeah.
uh,
Wow.
yeah, you've got some of the most sensitive information in the planet sitting in most
Right.
of these systems. Most healthcare systems have fairly uh, antiquated backends.
Archaic.
Yeah, archaic is a good way to put it. And
Hmm.
I've worked with those companies before in my previous roles. And you're entering an era with AI where a lot of bad actors are going to have extremely powerful tools put in their hands. And so the cybersecurity threat is only going to 100x moving forward. And
Okay.
so, the dirty little secret of security always has been that the saving grace of criminals is that they are usually stupid and greedy. Um, usually meaning stupid means there's only a few people who are really good who can get into things, even though there's a ton of vulnerabilities. And greedy meaning even when they do, they show their hand pretty quickly and you can shut them down, right? They go for more. And so you got extremely powerful tools making a lot of not smart people smart, and scaling that at a level that's unseen before. And the other secret of cybersecurity has always been that the greatest vulnerability in the chain is the human component. Uh,
Yes.
and the scams that got humans before were incredibly stupid. The scams that are going to get you moving forward are going to be extremely sophisticated, and people are going to use human vulnerabilities to get into healthcare systems like nobody's business and move into ransomware and everything else. And so I think my biggest concern on the healthcare front is are healthcare companies investing in their back end? Are they investing 100x in cybersecurity? Because they're going to need it to keep themselves afloat. The other interesting area that's a concern on healthcare is just the information structure is terrible. It's
Mm,
really
yeah.
bad, unstructured data.
Hmm.
So if they want to get any value out of AI, it's going to be very hard for healthcare and of all places to do so because they haven't invested in structuring their data better up front. If you see any of the kind of the paperwork that goes through a system, it is indecipherable sometimes.
Yes.
And so I think those are the two problems healthcare is going to have with AI or taking advantage of it. Um,
Yeah. I just had a
Yeah.
flashback because Tom and I were talking about this, about
Oh,
unstructured data when we
we were in
have
the
to,
trenches.
we
yeah,
were,
yeah,
and I was having a chat with like an academia PhD, we're talking about like research, and I'm like, you guys don't understand how messy real world data is, because you guys get to like build it,
Like
structure it,
septic. It's a
make
septic
it
system they could just work in.
pretty.
It's so clean
Oh
and,
my
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had,
Yeah.
But,
It's a problem.
I had a classic example where we would collect a lot of data about kind of physician behavior, and like everything came back that like this one physician was off the charts on doing everything, all the procedures, everything. And it turned out the reason it was one physician was because they had an entire office of about 20
Oh,
physicians there. And
Oh,
when they did their paperwork, they never submitted the office number. So all the credit went to one of the physicians at the facility, right? It's just basic
uh,
stuff like that, right?
that
Which is,
guy's a
wow.
superstar.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah,
Uh,
with